Making yourself focus has always been a difficult task. We know this from monastic guides like the one by John Cassian, his Collationes, where he gives practical advice on how to focus as a monk. But focusing can be especially hard for those of us who live in the age of the smartphone. There are a billion different apps that are all calling to us all at the same time, trying to grab our attention. Welcome to ParkNotes. I'm Parker Settecase. I'm a philosopher and theologian, and most of what I do requires me to focus at will. I wear a lot of different cognitive hats. I host multiple YouTube channels. I have several blogs, and everything I do to earn a living requires me to focus in and concentrate on deep thinking and abstract thoughts. So over the years, I've picked up a bunch of different tips on how to help myself focus when I need to. And in this video, I'm going to share 9 or 10 different tips to help you focus when you need to. This video is sponsored by Headspace, but more on that later. Let's jump in with tip number 1. Okay, so I'm keeping my list of 10 tips for focusing in this Leuchtturm 1917 Jot book. Leuchtturm was kind enough to send me one of these to try out, or a couple of these, and I've loved them so far. They also sent me this pen. It's a gel pen. It's super nice. I can't pronounce it at all. Dragrifel, maybe? It's the number 1. Leuchtturm 1917, super cool. But let's jump in with tip number 1 on how to make yourself focus. Tip number 1 is super easy. It's just finding the best times for you to complete your cognitive tasks. For some people, this is first thing in the morning. I know my friend Christopher Rocchio, the author of the Sun Eater books, he will wake up at like 5 a.m. and he'll try and write, I think, 1,500 words, he said. Part of that has to do with the demands of life. He's waking up before his family so he can get his work done. For me, the best time for my cognitive tasks start around 8:30 and go till like 1:30. And so I know that's my best, most optimal time for me to make myself focus. If I'm trying to work outside of those times, then it's going to be much harder for me to make myself focus. Not impossible, but I just know myself. I know the best time for me to work is in that early-ish morning, right around 8:30 or 9, and then going all the way through 1:30 p.m. Then I eat lunch and everything's just out the window. So tip number 1 is just finding the best times for you to focus or to make yourself focus. Tip number 2, I'm just calling clear the deck. This is getting your mind right before you jump into your focus state or your mandatory focus session. This could involve things like meditation. You're clearing your mind of all those distractions that want to pop into your focus time and steal your attention away. That could involve guided or semi-guided meditation through things like Headspace.
And when you're ready, just taking a couple of big deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, noticing how the body expands.
Or it could involve just listening to the right kind of music before you jump into your focus session in order to help yourself get in the right state of mind. So clear the deck. The next tip I'm just calling mindset. This has to do with just sheer willpower. I was recently watching the NCAA wrestling championships, and I was reminded of all the lessons that I used as a wrestler from first grade all the way up through a D1 program myself. There are certain lessons that we learn as athletes which help us manage our time well for our sport and help us push through pain to accomplish the desired results. But for whatever reason, many of us forget to bring those into our cognitive life. So here I want to read just a quick little excerpt from the introduction to this book, How to Focus, which is a series of excerpts from John Cassian's longer work, Collationes. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but it is selected, translated, and introduced by Jamie Kreiner. And in the introduction, Jamie puts things really nicely. So he says, one of the central preoccupations of the Collationes is the art of concentration. I love the way he worded this. Concentration is an art. It's not just a science, hey, do this and that. It's an art. You have to figure out how to help yourself concentrate. This art of concentration required many interlocking practices, and the diverse metaphors that Cassian and his interlocutors deploy reflect their sense of monastic practice as a multifaceted system of training. Distraction did not have a single solution. So I found that to be so helpful. There are a multitude of different distractions, and so you're going to need different techniques in order to battle those distractions. Concentration is a science and an art. I also love this little phrase, metacognitive habits. So these monks like John Cassian were developing metacognitive habits. They weren't just cognitive habits, they were habits about your cognitive habits. So it's the meta level, moving up one, which is so cool. We need to develop some good metacognitive habits if we're going to make ourselves focus when we need to focus. Commenting on Cassian, Kreiner says, Cassian also insisted that attentiveness was not so much of an achievement as it was a perpetual practice. So this is something that we develop over time and something we have to continue keeping up on if we're going to be able to focus at will. And so here we're still under the mindset tip, but I want to talk about progressive overload. Now, progressive overload when it comes to lifting weights has to do with adding more weight. So you're progressively overloading your muscles, you're straining them more, and then each time you're going to recover more and either grow if you're in hypertrophy or get stronger if you're in a strength phase. But I think the same principles can apply to our cognitive tasks like focusing. And so using things like this cheap little timer to set a time for you to focus is really, really helpful. Let's say I want to go for 60 minutes. Really, that first 5 minutes is not going to be useful for me at all, but I'll set 60 and assume that I'll be focusing for 55 because it takes at least 5 minutes for me to actually get going. But I set that. I put my phone away. I put this over in the corner so I can view it. It's not making me stress out. I know for some of you that may be really difficult to see the timer winding down. You can also set it to go the other way so you can see how long you have been focusing instead of how much longer you have to go on the clock. For me, this is super helpful. I put my phone away and I say, hey, I can live my life without getting texts or other kind of messages for 55 minutes. That's no problem. I can survive. The world won't burn down without me for the next 55 minutes. Now I'm more free to focus on my studying. So get your mindset right by figuring out some metacognitive habits that will help you set yourself up to focus well, including using a timer that is not associated or directly tied to your smartphone. Now, I also recognize that trying to focus for 55 minutes is going to be really difficult for some of you. It was really difficult for me when I first started these intellectual habits. So start off small. Set a timer for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and just try to focus on your reading or your writing or whatever kind of tasks are requiring you to have undivided focus, and then progressively overload yourself. Do 17 minutes instead of 10, do 20, do 30, do 40, all the way up until 90 minutes. Now, I think 90 minutes is probably going to be your max where you're going to need to take a break after 90 minutes of uninterrupted focus. But I don't know, maybe some of you are focus studs and will get up to 3 or 4 hours. That would be insane. Okay, so the next tip has to do with ADHD. A lot of you in my audience have ADHD. Maybe it is diagnosed and maybe some of you are undiagnosed. I myself am just coming to realize that I probably have it as well. All of my siblings have been diagnosed with it and I hear it's genetic. My father has it as well. And it just makes a whole bunch of sense of my whole entire life. But whether you're neurodivergent or neurotypical, I think everyone who is trying to help themselves focus can benefit from using Headspace. So like I said, I wear a lot of different cognitive hats and all of them require focus, and not just focus, but focus on demand. I can't just wait for the inspiration or the motivation to strike me. I need to make myself get into a focus state in order to get all of my cognitive tasks completed. That's why I love Headspace. Headspace is meditation made simple. They offer lots of different meditation options, including guided meditations for beginners, semi-guided meditations for those who want to take a more active role, and unguided meditations as well. And on top of that, they offer things like quick focus resets, which help you quickly get back on track into your focus state. I've been using Headspace meditations to help me clear the deck before my own focus sessions, and it's been really helpful. But Headspace also offers content outside of meditation like breathing exercises, focus playlists like my favorite one using Hans Zimmer's music, and even sleep casts to help you unwind before bed and get a more restful night of sleep. So if you want to see how Headspace might be helpful for you, you can try it out completely for free for 60 days. All you have to do is sign up with my link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Okay, so big thanks to Headspace for sponsoring this video. So as I've been studying ADHD a little bit more, I found that some people use it as an excuse to not get their work done, and others use it as an explanation to just say, here's why I behave this way, and here's why I need to take extra steps to help myself focus, and get my work done on time. I obviously, by the tone of my voice, prefer the explanation route to the excuse route. ADHD is an explanation of your behavior and why you need to take extra steps, but don't use it as an excuse to not get things done. You have to come to know yourself and why you are the way you are. And if ADHD is a part of that, then cool, figure that out and develop new routines and habits. And if you need medication, then jump on that. If you think you may have it, then go and get diagnosed. It can actually be really helpful to just put a name on something. Here's what I have. Here's the way my brain works. It's a little bit different than others. And so I may have to do special or different things to help myself focus. That's no problem. Let's just do it. So I have a little note here. Willpower is real, so start training it. If you've never actually used your willpower to try and make yourself focus, why do you think that you would be good at that? Your will has to be trained just like anything else. And when things are calling to you saying, no, this is too difficult, jump off of that task and do this instead, you just tell yourself, no, I'm not going to do that. And the more you call out to me, the more I'm going to resist you. And the more you resist, the stronger your willpower will become and the easier it will be to help yourself focus. So let me just share one more quote from Kreiner's introduction. He says, without a destination to guide its movements, the mind will take endless detours without even realizing it's off course. So this is why it's important to set goals like I'm going to focus for an hour, I'm going to focus for 15 minutes, etc., etc. You need that guiding star to motivate yourself. Hey, it's just 50 minutes. We can do this. Let's go. Now, Cassian also recognizes an ultimate goal for focusing and the proximate goal of focusing. Focusing just for focusing's sake is kind of dumb. Just let's see how long we can focus. That's okay, I guess, but what's your long-term goal? For Cassian and the other monks, it was reflecting on God and having an extended prayer life. So what is your why? Why do you need to work on focusing? Is it to help you get ahead in your career or actually do the work that you've been paid to do? Is it to learn something extra? Is it to enjoy a fiction novel? I don't know what it is for you, so you need to come up with your ultimate goal. Why do I need to train my focusing habits? And then you make your proximate goals like trying to focus for 30 minutes on a given task or an hour, and then progressively overloading that until you get better and better at uninterrupted focus times. The next tip is finding your motivation to study or to do your cognitive work. This one's really similar to a previous tip about finding your ultimate goal for studying. Find your motivation. Help yourself focus by reminding yourself that, hey, I'm paying for this. Maybe this is a course that I'm paying for in undergrad or in graduate school, or you're taking a private course, or you bought a book in order to study it. Hey, I paid for this, or I am paying for this. Let me actually get the most out of it. Let me make myself focus on it because it's costing me money. Or perhaps it is paying you. Maybe this is stuff that you have to work on for your actual job, for your career. Tell yourself, hey, I need to focus on this because this is my livelihood. Now, I don't mean this as the sole motivation to spike your cortisol and make you stress out about your work, but it can be an added method to say, hey, I am paying for this, or it is paying for me and my existence. I need to focus on this. Maybe it's helping you grow, or it's a hobby that you want to take on. You want to become more of a reader or a blogger or whatever task that you have in mind. Finding your motivation and reminding yourself of that motivation can really help you focus when you're having a hard time. Now, if it's particularly interesting to you, you're probably not going to have a hard time focusing on it. So a lot of your hobbies, you don't have to make yourself focus on because your interest in that hobby is an intrinsic motivation that's just driving you and fueling you to focus or hyper focus on it anyways. But finding your motivation for the task that you have to focus on can serve like that same interest that drives your hobbies. So find your motivation and remind yourself of it on the regular. The next one is super practical. It's just having to do with food. Don't eat a big carb meal before you have to make yourself focus. It is not going to help you. You're going to have probably an insulin spike. You're going to feel groggy and sluggish, and it's not going to do wonders for your cognitive tasks. So this is probably part of the reason why the mornings are the best for me, because I've been doing intermittent fasting. I don't necessarily do it for the health benefits. I do it mostly for the cognitive benefits. I found that eating in the afternoon is the best thing for my mental life, for my focus, for my clarity, for me to help myself get my work done. So just know that food is definitely a factor. So plan out your meals accordingly. There are all sorts of things like apple cider vinegar hacks to help your glucose not spike and stuff like that, but I'm not not an expert in any of this, so let me just put that in front of you. Hey, just know that food affects your mental clarity. Do some research and find out the best times for you to eat in order to fuel your mental life and help you focus. Next up is use a notebook. This is the ParkNotes channel. I am obsessed with notebooks, so of course I have to give you a tip on using notebooks. But I want to say use notebooks before and during your focus sessions. Using a notebook like a compendium or a commonplace book can help you get in the right state of mind to focus. So let's say you're about to write a philosophy paper. If you have a commonplace book with a bunch of the quotations that you're going to use in your paper, then thumbing through that commonplace book will help you get in the right state of mind to be thinking about the content of the paper you're about to write. Same thing with a compendium. A compendium is different than a commonplace book in that a compendium is just the information. It doesn't have to do with getting all the quotations right or anything like that. It's just storing the information about a particular topic. So if you're about to do some work on a particular topic, then thumb through your commonplace book or your compendium to help you focus on that kind of thing. Going back to the Cassian book just one more time, looking in the introduction, there's this great quote here. You can't just clean out your mind and leave it blank. You've got to replace all those vivid images and ideas with other things to work with. Imagine your mind as a cool, calm sanctuary that will give you access to God. Store that vault with things you treasure, and eventually it will overflow with thoughts you actually want to be thinking. I love that so much. That's exactly what I mean by using notebooks before your focus sessions in order to help you think about the things you're supposed to be focusing on. So I love philosophy and theology and abstract thinking, so all my examples are going to be like that. But let's say you have a commonplace book for your favorite science fiction quotes. Maybe you read through that before you jump into your designated time to be reading that science fiction novel on your TBR list. Reading through your favorite quotes will get you into the right state of mind to be thinking about science fiction. So fill the sanctuary of your mind with the treasures that you want to be thinking about in your focus sessions. Thumb through that pre-focus session compendium or commonplace book. So that's how you could use a notebook before your focus sessions, but using one during is also exceptionally helpful. Using a notebook as just a catch-all, like I'm doing with this jot book, I'm just catching all of the ideas that I want to be thinking about, can be so helpful during your focus session. When you're trying to focus on one particular thing, a bunch of new ideas and thoughts are going to pop into your mind. And sometimes this causes anxiety for us. I don't want to forget that. Okay, fine, don't forget it. Just take out a jot book or some other notebook that is functioning as your catch-all notebook, write down the idea, and put it away and continue focusing. Another idea comes in, okay, I'm going to write that down, and we put it back away. Another idea, okay, we're putting it down. And then you're telling yourself, you're signaling to yourself, I'm not forgetting the ideas. Don't worry. It's okay to focus. The world's not going to end, and I'm not going to lose all of my best insights just because I'm focusing on one thing instead of everything. So use notebooks to get yourself in the right state of mind, and then use notebooks to signal to yourself, I'm focusing on this, but yes, I will write down that thought or that idea and come back to it later. The next tip is using a ritual or a routine to help get yourself in that right state of mind to focus. So that may include using your notebook, your compendium, or commonplace book, but it can also include sitting down at the same place that you always focus at. It could also mean choosing a different place. If you're always doing your work in the same spot and you get a mental block about being in that situation, just go somewhere else. Go to a coffee shop, go to a library, go somewhere that is conducive for deep, uninterrupted focus. Some people really benefit from a structured, strict routine, and others will benefit from a different kind of ritual. Another really simple practical tip is using something as a fidget. I love this pen as a fidget. It is weighty, it's metal, so it's kind of hefty, and it's weighted in the front. It's just really easy to spin around, but the best part of this pen is this little twisting. I don't know if you guys can hear that. This little twisting click, that helps me so much. And that could be because maybe I'm neurodivergent, I don't know. Whatever the case, having something to play with is really helpful. Otherwise, I'm going to be bending and playing with the pages of the book or whatever I'm reading. It's not going to be good. So I need something that I can fidget with in order to help myself focus. So maybe this is super distracting for you guys right now. But this is super helpful for me. Not all fidgets are the same. They're not all the best for everyone. Some are so complex that it takes me out of my focus sessions, so I don't use those. This just simple pen with just a little spin top, little click top, That's super helpful for me. And then the last tip is using music to help yourself focus. This can mean using the same song on repeat or making a playlist for yourself. It can also look like using Headspace's Focus with Hans Zimmer. Here is an hour and a half of just Hans Zimmer music. So it's right at that 90-minute mark where I said it's probably going to be the upper end of your focus time. And I really love Hans Zimmer, so I just put this on. It's going to help me get into that focus state and stay there. I'm not going to get any words coming in. I'm not going to get any ads breaking my concentration. It's just me and Hans Zimmer getting work done. So definitely check that out. All right, so there's a bunch of tips that I've picked up along the way in my intellectual life, in my intellectual journey, in making myself focus when I have to focus. But I want to hear from you guys. Which tip do you think is best? Which one's going to work best for you? And then if you have any extra tips or tips that I missed, please drop those in the comments. I always benefit from hearing you guys, and there's going to be a bunch of people watching these videos who want to benefit from your advice on how to focus. All right, if you made it this far into the video, then you are awesome. Leave me a thinking emoji in the comments so I know who the real ones are. Make sure to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future tips and tricks for focusing. All right, that's going to do it. I'll catch you guys next time.